Welcome to the Bridal Journey podcast. Today, Nina and Tatiana, the visionary founders of WEDIT, join us. The chic digital wishing well reimagines modern wedding gifting. With experience as both a bride and a professional, Nina is a celebrated wedding planner and Tatiana is a brand strategist for some of Australia's best-known lifestyle brands. They've created a stylish, seamless alternative to the outdated gift registry. WEDIT is now the go-to for modern couples who value freedom, ease, and elevated design. Nina and Tatiana, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for flying to Melbourne from Perth.
The Wild Wild West.
Yes.
No, we're so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, we're very excited.
So let's begin with the story behind WEDIT. What sparked the idea and how did your wedding experiences shape the concept?
So it really started, I'd been in the industry for about 3 years doing wedding planning, and I noticed with the amazing weddings I was working with and beautiful couples that there was this sort of gaping aspect of their wedding planning journey where there was no registry where they really could feel that they were aligning with or proud of. You know, it wasn't aesthetic, like, you know, all the incredible details of a wedding. You focused on the flowers and the stationery, but there was just no registry that these couples were sort of leaning towards. And then the other thing I was noticing was that the want for cash contributions instead of gifts, physical gifts, was huge. 99% of couples that I was working with really ended up wanting the wishing well box at the wedding, which of course is not the, you know, most sightly thing to have, you know, at
it's
your
not
wedding.
as pretty.
It's not as pretty.
The bride.
Anyway, fast forward, Tatiana and I were at a wedding actually in Broome in Western Australia.
That's how we met.
We were chatting about gifting. We're both big gifters and we're traditionalists at heart. And we, Tats actually asked me, you know, what registry would you recommend to your brides? And I said, honestly, there is no registry that I would recommend that would align with the brides and grooms that we were working with. We started working together on my business. Tats is an incredible copywriter, and we really started chatting about this idea of creating a registry that had a brand that we both would have been proud to have with our weddings. You know, for that sort of understated, chic bride, modern bride, but also we wanted traditional elements with the business, as well as being forward and modern, which is this cashless, cash contributions, essentially putting the wishing well online. So we created WEDIT. We worked with developers for 3 years building the platform. We went live 2.5 years ago and, used by brides and grooms all around Australia. We're very, very proud of it.
And I suppose the only registry I can really think of is David Jones.
Correct.
Exactly. Well, there's also Peters of Kensington, which if you're a Sydney sider, like I used to be, which I used, funnily enough.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of proved to me, because I think I'd been married maybe for 18 months when Nina and I met at a wedding. And I was starting to get out. I was first cab off the rank, and all my friends were coming to me because I was the only married one, what registry? And I was to be honest, I just did Peters of Kensington because that's what my mum did. But it was all Waterford Crystal and silver service, gorgeous, but not modern, not really what I wanted for my house. And to be honest, I was already living with my husband. We already set up house. So there were all these sort of pain points that Nina and I were picking up on.
You don't want to be locked into one business either. I mean, I want a bit of David Jones. I want a bit of Peters Kensington, but I also want a dinner in, New York on a honeymoon or something, or maybe some money towards the renovation. I mean, this is the modern couple. Everyone really is living with each other now. So it was, we just saw this huge gap in the market for something that really spoke to everyone.
And I think, and I'm sure Andy, as you would know, all things weddings, there's also been lots of cultural shifts. I think there was one point in time, and obviously that different cultures have different takes on it, but maybe the mother's parents used to pay for the whole wedding. I think a lot more couples now contribute or pay outright for the whole thing. Yeah. That's been a shift. So people now also want much grander honeymoons than I think our parents or our grandparents' generation wanted. They want to go overseas. I think before it was you go down to the local beach house or whatever. And so I guess weddings are more expensive. Couples are on the whole contributing a lot more than they used to. this all costs money, and I think people want to be able to like have the best of both worlds. They want the beautiful wedding day and everything to be on brand because everyone's their own like personal brand these days, I guess, with Instagram. But then they also want the gorgeous honeymoon, and sometimes you can't have both. But at least with WEDIT, like what we're finding is like whether it's a reno you want or a gorgeous honeymoon, or you do want to kit out your house in like your favorite things, like it can subsidize that in a way that feels like sentimental because it's from your loved ones and it commemorates a special day, but it's also practical. There's no waste. You're getting exactly what you want. The other thing about weddings is like you often plan them like a year in advance. Your taste might change. You might have scanned some couch you think is like the coolest thing in January, but come December, you're over it, you know? And I guess with a traditional registry, as Nina said, you're sort of like committed to that now. Whereas with a format like WEDIT, you have total flexibility, total freedom to really like choose whatever you want.
Freedom to choose.
Yeah.
And I think you really found a gap in the market because, as you said before, it was very department store. In my mind, I'm just thinking about an old Sex and the City episode and Carrie, Carrie Miranda,
Yes.
they're walking through the department store just scanning all this random
That
stuff.
was me even,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Yeah, so you've really been innovative and found this gap that, you know, no one else is doing it. Can you explain how the platform works and why it kind of resonates with modern couples today?
So it is extremely simple. That was a huge thing for Tatiana and I when we were building it, that the user journey was easy and quick. So basically you create your registry. It's essentially like a profile. Now we've set it up so if you're more of the traditional registry type bride, which you were just referencing, we had an amazing graphic designer that we worked with from the UK create icons so you can be specific of where your cash is going. So you can choose, you know, a Smeg toaster. You know, you can populate it with a Smeg toaster icon. You can do a piece of art or a dinner in New York, as we were talking about. Or if you're more just wanting to get to the point and it's all going to your home reno or it's all going to your honeymoon, you can set up your registry by letting your guests know that you're putting it towards a big ticket item. So it's very simple in that sense. Once it's finished, you get a custom URL, you get a QR code, which you can put on your stationery. You can put your URL on your stationery, you send it out to all of your guests, and essentially it's live. Your guests can, contribute towards your registry wherever they are. They could even do it as you're walking up the aisle. We all know that, when you've got a physical wishing well at weddings, it's so stressful. Let's say you're at a rural wedding, quickly realising you haven't bought a gift for your couple that you're going, that are hosting the wedding. You go to the ATM, you get out the cash, you quickly go find a crappy Hallmark card, you put it in, you get to the reception or the ceremony, you forget to actually put it in the wishing well box. I mean, that's done a million times. And then
it's off to the dry cleaner.
It's off to the dry cleaner. But the bride and groom, they're unlikely to get the card anyway, or it's just a very sort of risky and I don't know.
There's just like a lot of friction points and it's clunky.
It's too clunky. Anyway, so basically it's all online. You do not have to worry about any of that. It's exactly like online shopping. We use Stripe, an incredible payment processing platform. And then once the wedding's finished, we also saw that most cash contributions by guests are a few days before the wedding because, of course, no one's organised, and then post the wedding. Of how many people have
probably 80%?
Well, yeah. I mean, how many weddings have you been to where you go, oh my gosh, I haven't given you your gift yet. What was the registry? So it's open 2 weeks post-event date to capture all those guests that are hungover at the recovery and figuring out that they haven't actually given the bride and groom anything. And once the 2 weeks is up, it gets collated and then transferred to your nominated bank account, and then you've got the freedom to choose whatever you want.
I have two things to say to that. One, I went to a wedding just before Christmas and there was a wishing well and people were just dropping straight cash.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Ooh. I haven't seen that before.
And so
that reminds me of like a lotto, like a game show.
Absolutely. I took a video of it. I was going to do a TikTok on it actually and just say how wild is this. A, you're covering off guests who haven't paid because the groom and couple are not going to.
And you don't know who gave and then
people get very, very confused about cash gifting, what to do with weddings.
Totally.
So I think this takes a little bit of the
because I think there
guesswork.
are some cultures, where cash gifting has always been part of that, like religion or culture. And so really we hope that we're servicing all of that. I think for some other cultures, it was very much gift driven and registry driven. So we hope that with WEDIT, we're sort of servicing all the different ways and cultures that people like to gift.
The beauty of it also is that it's so transparent that the bride and groom get a list of, messages and, amounts. So, as you just said, like nothing gets missed. It's so,
everyone's accounted for.
Everyone's accounted for. You can't have, I've worked at weddings where, envelopes, they're just
not signed.
Yeah, not.
My husband's done it. Like we've been to wishing well weddings, and like someone, inevitably it's like a bridesmaid or like an auntie, and you get an email and it's like, they want to go on honeymoon. Here's some bank details. Like we just felt like there was just like a sort of
streamlined,
sleeker way to do that. It's not as clunky. You're not putting people in an awkward position where they feel like they're putting their hand out for you.
Yeah.
And
it's well-mannered.
Well-mannered. And then also
well-mannered.
My husband's done it and then like forgot to put his name on the transfer. So he's gone to the effort. He cares about this couple. He wants to celebrate them. He wants to give them whatever a contribution to their honeymoon. But then there's really no acknowledgement now that he's done that because he just was in a rush and like did it without a name.
We've covered it all. We didn't mention that back to the card, getting that crappy Hallmark card and, you're at a rural post office or anyway, we sell gift cards on there as well. So you can purchase a gift card, write your personal message. It gets printed by
it's actually printed.
It's actually printed by a
it's like
graphic
a
designer. It's
cute
been amazingly designed by our graphic designer, and then it's sent beautifully packaged to the bride and groom. So they've got that keepsake, still going back to that traditional nostalgic element that Tats and I really bonded over, but we've made it modern.
Yeah.
And I think, there's so much confusion. I had a journalist from Yahoo call me last week for an article about brides and grooms, because I did a TikTok on it. Brides and grooms putting their bank details on wedding invites.
It's horrible.
And the two of you, when we had our pre-discussion before this podcast, talk a lot about that tradition and manners. And what do you think about something like that?
Yeah, and look, it's not for us to like, we're not the arbiters of etiquette, but for us, like, I feel like that takes all the sentiment out of it. And look, ultimately, we are an online wishing well, like there's no two ways about it. But I think in the same way that when you used to purchase someone a gift, like that obviously represents a certain value, but it never felt like that because there was, it's represented as a gift. And I think we wanted to be like almost a veil, to use like a wedding analogy. Like ultimately it is still a type of transfer, but what we've realised is that is what the modern couple want. Like Nina's often said to me, it doesn't matter what scale of wedding, what the budget is, ultimately every couple wants that flexibility, and that goes right across the board. And I think that for us, like, obviously, yes, you can always put your bank details, you can always buy a box and put it out there, but I guess with WEDIT, it just feels a little bit more polished, a little bit more well-mannered, as we say.
Yeah.
And then as a result, and I'm sort of like saying different here, like couples are receiving more because we're making it easier, we're making it more polite. Like I know, some of my parents' generation find that culture of putting out bank details kind of off-putting because it's so foreign to them, because they're used to like trekking out to David Jones and trying to find a car park and doing the scanning and, there's only a toaster left. Like, I don't really want to choose a toaster, but that's all I have left. And so I think, as Nina said, like we've tried to infuse that like conventional sensibility of gifting and those values into a more modern way to gift.
And you said with, again, this was a pre-conversation we had before the podcast, that using a registry like yours, you're actually getting more as a bride and groom. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We've talked about
this a little bit
lot.
of a hot, there's a hot topic online, I guess, about brides and grooms spending so much on that wedding because they think that that's what they're going to receive in gifts, and then being severely disappointed.
Yes.
Completely wrong way to go about it, but disappointed when they're not receiving the amount.
And look, we
that
were
they
surprised. Us like ultimately, like our first mission was like we want a chic, way to gift. We want an easy, a foolproof way to gift. We are busy working mums. Like we know when we're in wedding season, you're like strung out. Sometimes you're traveling every weekend. You've got babysitters to organise, outfits, everything. Like the last thing you want is like, shit, I don't know if we're allowed to say this. Like I'm in this like random rural town. I don't even know if they have an ATM. Like where's the ATM? Like all the chaos. So we wanted convenience and chic, and it was like a pleasant surprise that in emphasising like that user experience for both the host and the guest, and sort of having a more aesthetic experience and what else was out there, like that couples were actually receiving. It was like a really nice surprise that we were getting all this feedback from our customers, I guess, that they were like blown away by the generosity of their loved ones. So
it's also a reflection of, you know, that click friendly. You're online, you know, it is clunky getting cash out of the ATM. You got denominations and, you know, all those things to get your head around, whereas you can do whatever, you know, you can put in whatever amount you want with WEDIT, and I feel like just that easy user journey and maybe the transparency or something, people are just so generous.
You could literally like I also think there's no excuses anymore. Like with a wishing well box, it's like there's one night only that you can gift. Like yes, of course you can be like, you know, if you're close to the couple, like call them a week later, being like, look, sorry, I've got to come drop off some cash. Like it's a little bit of like, you know, feels like a more explicit kind of deal going on. Like I don't think that's the most comfortable scenario. So I think a lot of people that might be well-meaning and meant to gift, because you only have like that flash in the pan like night where you are organised enough, and you, even if you're organised, you remember to put it in the box or whatever. Like there's all these things that can go wrong. We're trying to like remove all the
I was also just thinking about like online shopping. Online shopping. It's almost like online shopping. You know how, you know, that doesn't exist. I'm just going to press add to cart. Like I think we have seen that it's not, you know, you don't have the cash in your hand. You know, so people are just being more generous because no, of course I'm going to give them this much. I'm going to round up. Like I think just simply because it's so online and easy.
Like whatever.
Easy, exactly. Whatever. Like, I'm feeling good today. I love you today.
Like 85% more. Like so if someone's picked out a piece of art, which is a very popular
I mean,
people are picking out pieces of art.
Yeah. And people are getting like, we don't know what to do now with like our piece of art like costs this much, but we got 85% more. Like look, it's a good problem to have. But I think it's also 2 weeks grace. Honestly, like 80% of transfers come through
after,
like the day of and after. I myself have gone to WEDIT weddings and literally done the transfer while we're waiting for the bride. Like, you know, when you're seated in the aisle and you're like, because I know how quick and easy it is to do. And I think all those little things mean there's like really no excuse for a guest not to give. Whereas I think there's a lot of, you know, everyone has busy lives. Like, and I think what happens is people go to the wedding and then they move on. Like they might be like, oh shit, I was meant to gift. And it was,
do you send reminders out? Like, have you sent your?
We do. We do recommend that actually. It's
we
almost
don't
like
personally we don't send it to the guest, but there is like we make suggestions to, like through our EDMs.
And from your data, what are you finding people are doing? Are they spending more with cash or buying gifts, or what's the like trends?
We have noticed that the majority, just over 50%, are wanting it towards big ticket items. So they're doing, we see a lot of home renovations. We see a lot of honeymoons.
I think honeymoons, would that be the lead?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And, you know, art. But yes, I would say it's just, they're just getting, you know, going towards those big ticket items.
And we still have people, like there is the option to, as Nina referred to earlier, to use it like a conventional registry. And let's say there's 20 things or more that you want, and you can literally, we should probably make it clear, like we're not a department store. Like it's all like you receive the value of that amount for the toaster, the cutlery, whatever you want for your house or just generally, whether it's furniture. But we're also like finding that I think those trends of like a big piece of artwork, whether it's original or not, honeymoons, renos, like, and that's the beauty of the way that WEDIT works with the sort of transfer system is that, you know, you can change your mind, but also like a lot, like if you were to choose a piece of furniture, I know a lot of big furniture stores do have registry options, but with WEDIT you can change, you might decide like your taste has already changed as we referenced, but also like a lot of galleries aren't set up to facilitate like 50 different transfers, and often what ends up happening is like a family member ends up having to collect those transfers. You risk losing that piece of art if it gets sold beforehand. Like there's all this friction.
The last thing you want to be, the last thing you want to have is you locked into a furniture store that was trendy that year of your wedding and you've got, thousands of dollars locked into this. So it just means that, you can still get those big ticket items, but you're just not locked in.
The other thing, like we spoke about how WEDIT really keeps with the trends that we're seeing in our culture. And I think this whole idea of less is more, like the big ticket items, or whether it's like the beautiful couch, the beautiful piece of art, the honeymoon. Like I'm sure we've all read the article about how the experience economy is becoming like bigger and bigger. Like people are spending more money on wellness, holidays, experiences. Like yes, we all like nice things, but there really has been this shift like across the board. WEDIT is like the ideal platform to facilitate that change in preferences. And same thing, like we also like to say, like, we don't want to get up on our soapbox and say, look, like we're this green company, but by virtue of the service, it really is the sustainable way to gift because it means there's no wastage. Like there would be so many registry weddings where people go off piece. They're like, oh, they want things for the house and they choose their own hideous cheese board.
Or the pasta machine. I've got one in the garage.
Yeah, gathering dust, like especially if you live somewhere like
Bondi.
You have
like a week of being Italian and then it's done.
Yeah, like, East Coast living with so many more people in apartments, you've got very precious real estate and like you've got all these gifts in storage, which maybe you thought you were going to use the pasta machine and let's be honest, like, what is it? Like Instagram versus reality or like, you're not kind of with the apron on, like home cooking every night. And so there's just, and then there's also just unwanted presents, which I think will always happen, but I do think WEDIT minimises that. And so you don't have all these things being produced and not being loved and used. So I think that's really important. And the whole idea of like having one really beautiful thing or a couple of beautiful things rather than 50 million things, that's also something that we found WEDIT really squares nicely with.
Yeah, well, it's completely wasteful, isn't it? Someone said in their comments when I did a post on this, I gift each because we were talking about how much people are gifting on average, which I'd like to know from you in a minute. And someone commented saying, I just gift every couple like a set of champagne flutes from blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I would hate that because I don't drink champagne.
Exactly.
I mean, like I could obviously have it in my kitchen to give,
but you probably have
someone. But
you'd probably re-gift.
Oh, you already have got that set of champagne flutes.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
But, from your data, I don't know if you can divulge this or it's something that stats you can have. Another really interesting that gets people really fired up, and I suppose it's different across all culture backgrounds and
weddings,
how close you are to somebody or if you're traveling overseas. There's so many different etiquette rules. But how much on average are people gifting for weddings?
Look, I think that it's also worth saying that like when you go through WEDIT, it's completely like secure, encrypted, anonymous, like privacy is paramount for us and as is cybersecurity. So
it'd be more like a industry guide or guess. I would be saying between 250 and 500
per person
for a couple.
or couple.
Probably a couple. Yeah. I mean, we see a lot more. And we don't see, I wouldn't be seeing less than $100 or $150, But yes, I would say that. I mean, the cost of living has gone up. I would say that's probably
and the
pretty
cost
accurate.
Of weddings have gone
cost
up.
Of weddings have gone up.
But it was just really interesting to read in the comments everyone's ideal amount and how
I don't like it.
Oh no, it blows up every time I do it
and it's
on
very
social.
The worst question is how much the weddings cost. Oh golly gosh.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's just how
I've been doing a bit
string.
of a series.
Do you really want to know?
Debriefing
exactly
influencers' weddings.
I also think there's so many factors, and like I think, and this is not knowing it through WEDIT, but like just different people have different have different approaches to generosity. Like a uni student could spend their whole week's pay on a gift, and then some squillionaire like might give the same amount, but has more means. Like it's there's no like nothing's standardized. It's so personal. And
Sometimes it's good to know whether you're hitting the mark though, because it's not something
Definitely.
that I discuss with my friends.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when it was our wedding, it was just interesting to see.
Yes, it is
And I was
very
like,
interesting.
oh shit, that person's
Yeah.
been gifting all our friends this much. And we've
Yes.
like totally
Yes.
undervalued
Yes,
how
yes.
much we've been giving. Like that's
Yes.
how much they're giving everybody else. And we're
Yeah.
only been
Yeah.
giving it's just very,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's interesting
It
to
is
know whether
interesting.
you're
Totally.
giving a good average or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Because you'd
Yeah.
hate to be either giving too much or too less.
Yeah.
So it's good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
how
it
much.
is. It's so. And then,
Everyone
like,
wants to know. It's,
Yeah. Everyone
I know
wants
it's
to
that
know.
question, and we do get asked that a lot. And the other thing is like, I think you're guided by like how close you are to the cup. Like there's
Yes,
so
there's
many
different
factors at
factors.
play.
Someone even said though that they were guided by how much they thought they were spending on the wedding.
Yes.
So where the venue was and how
Yes,
great
I
they
have
thought the
heard
wedding
that.
was going to be. I was like, I don't know
full
about that.
analysis.
Yeah, I always
I
just thought
love
the
that.
general rule of thumb was like pay for your head, which would be standard
yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good rule of
Yes.
thumb.
Well, I honestly, I don't even know how guests could even figure that out because there are so many
hidden costs,
hidden
like
costs,
production.
and it takes. Yeah, there's just what's the value on time and all these different things.
Yeah,
so
well, you
good
might
luck
hold
to the
the
guests
secret
getting
key in
out their
your
Excel
analytics.
spreadsheet and trying to actually put that formula in and figuring out there.
Yeah.
But no, I would say just
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Evaluate it for each
ultimately
wedding.
you know what I think if I could give advice, and again, this isn't like drawn from any specific data, but what I've said to friends when they've asked me, assuming that I would know. And like I said, it's so private. Like we're not privy to like the nuts and bolts of it. That's for the host and the couples to know and only them. Like it's just for the platform to like process it. But like I think you always deep down know like what feels comfortable
Yeah.
to you. And ultimately like it's the thought that counts. Like I don't think that
there's
like,
no right or wrong.
the hosts are looking at the like it's not like it's such a it's
but
like
it
any
is,
gift.
but it is a juicy topic. So
It is
thanks,
juicy.
Andy.
People want to know.
I know. It really is. I
Yeah.
had a friend that gave like us a huge amount. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit, but she's, her husband's Italian and
Yes.
Yes.
they're
That
just like, this is
cultural-
what we do.
yeah.
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good to know. And you kind of want to be the first one to get married so then you can equal
You know
your
that-
friends
yes.
that
Yeah.
because it is a little bit embarrassing when you
Yes.
aren't.
I know,
are
do. And I
undergoing
think
it.
there's a lot of
Yes.
reciprocity going. Like that's what I had. Like
Yeah.
someone gave me X, I'm going to give them Y.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot as well.
Yeah. And so WEDIT has been the chosen registry of Australia's It Girl weddings. So the likes of Georgia Fowler, Sophie Coote, Bernadette Fahey.
You'd
that how you pronounce
the last name? Start that again.
Bernadette Suka now.
Well, no, I think it's Faye.
Yeah,
Okay.
we interviewed her on the podcast
Yeah.
when she was planning a wedding. Caroline Tran, Carla Clark, Claudia Fay, Miss Double Bay, and Sophie
Sophia Perfidis, who
Fetus.
is
Yeah.
so
Did our
gorgeous.
makeup this morning?
Yes.
And full circle moment because we'd never
She
met her in real
Absolutely
life.
divine.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
So
we
you
had a
got
beautiful
major
morning
girl
with her.
crushes
Yeah.
on her.
They've all used your platform. Why do you think this has been the chosen registry? And you haven't, let's just put a disclaimer there, you haven't paid them
No,
to do
no,
your registry or
payment.
promote it.
No.
They've just
No.
simply loved the platform and used it themselves. Why do you think this is such like a chosen registry for people?
I think like kind of rehashing what we've covered previously, like that emphasis on it just being really chic and convenient and modern. Like all of these are beautiful modern women. They're all business women in their own right, and they value their time. They value their loved ones' time. Like because ultimately, like WEDIT saves everyone time and effort. Like there is no wasted afternoon where you went to David Jones to buy the pasta maker that Nina never uses. So not only have you spent money that hasn't been put to use, but also your time and effort. So, and I think all of these women, because they're so chic and savvy, can acknowledge that. But yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
Our branding.
Our
obviously.
branding, like that was something that we really took seriously because to be perfectly honest, yes, there are other ways to gift. We're not the only gifting platform out there, but we are the only ones that we feel like really intrinsically understand by virtue of Nina's career as a bougie wedding planner, as I like to call her, and, my background in branding. Like we felt like, and we'd both recently been these brides, and I felt like I didn't have any option other than the Peters of Kensington route. No disrespect to Peters of Kensington. And so like, I guess we feel like WEDIT really gets the modern bride,
Yes.
modern couple. Like we don't want to discriminate, but like we understand what it's like to be that. And so we created what we wish we had. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, whether you're someone high profile, like one of the gorgeous girls you've mentioned, or you're just like a random chic bride, which we've also had plenty of those. Like we're often it's across the board. So it's like, I think somewhat they just understand. We
also hit the jackpot when we did our design for our brand. We worked with Natalia Baganesqua from London, and Tats and I really wanted it to not look and feel like a typical Aussie, maybe a bit of a coastal beigey neutrals vibe. Yeah. We went straight for the blues. I mean, she was from Britain, so we just love that traditional nostalgic element.
And it was fresh though too.
And, you know, it's very fresh.
The
and it was that
blue.
Something blue aspect that obviously resonates with every wedding. So we feel like that brand identity and the look and feel of it really just sets it apart from what was really saturated in the market at that time.
And it kind of fits nicely. Obviously, every wedding has their own DNA and like, you know, aesthetic, but I feel like it lives up to the hype of the really considered stationery, florals, dress, bonbonnery, whatever you have. Like, whereas the other kind of platforms out there, like not naming any names, like when I've had to use them as a guest previously prior to WEDIT, it was like, I was like, oh my God, for sure this was built by like a 45-year-old man.
They almost feel like Kathmandu websites or something.
It was like stock
so like
imagery.
hiking registry.
Like that
really
that
heavy
whole wedding
makeup
industry can be very online.
Oh, 100%.
That's why I did the bridal journeys, because there was no one
doing it,
disrupting it. It was that very tacky. It can be very tacky.
We always think WEDIT as classic with a twist. It's pretty neutral, but it's playful. And it's, you know, the typeface is classic, but then we've got the cheeky blue in there. So we knew that it could sort of resonate with whatever type of couple and bride you were. It kind of hit all the different points.
Classic, a kind of in between. As we've said, like in our approach, the way we offer gift cards, because Nina and I love a good card. Like, you know, on our
I searched for weeks for the perfect card.
And we found out the other day that our mums both they have
used to do
thing
that too.
For cards. Like Nina was telling someone else, I was like, no, that was my mum. Like she was like,
I think if you're a card person, you know, when you find a fellow card person, you're like, okay, you're never leaving my side.
Yeah. And so like all those little, I guess it's all the finer details. So the things that make Nina so incredible at what she does, and I know she said this to me, is like it's all the little details that make a big, beautiful wedding or a small, like intimate, beautiful wedding. And for us, that we applied that lens to like WEDIT, which is effectively an online wishing well, but we're like, how can we bring like some charisma and some sentiment?
Some fun.
So you mentioned before people are putting on their registry art, dedicating it to their honeymoon funds. What trends are you seeing in how couples use WEDIT?
I think really it is like honeymoon.
The big tickets.
The honeymoon, the piece of art, furniture.
It's almost like whether they're exhausted by the wedding planning journey, that by the time they set up the registry, there's like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to populate 100 items. They're just going straight for that. Do you know what? We just want all of these contributions to go towards a reno. I mean, it could be that. It could be that exhaustion, but I think also it's just, as you said, it's that experience economy.
Or it could be a hybrid.
Then we see hybrids.
I feel like it's also like, you know, they might want a few items and then they might want to have like a mini break, as Bridget Jones would say. Like, you know, it's really like choose your own adventure. And I think that's what people love about it. The world's your oyster. It still feels like, you know, like, I don't know, like it was really
just
important.
Reflect on, you know, the couple that are creating
We didn't want it to make it feel transactional in the way that sometimes, unless it is your culture, like that the whole like cash in a box thing can feel. So that was really important to us.
Well, Tatiana and Nina, I just want to ask you one final question as a wedding planner and strategist.
Okay. Strategist.
One final piece of advice for couples. It could be general. It could be about wedding registries, Just anything.
Do you want to go first?
No, I was more thinking of like a faux pas.
Well, let's do advice.
We'll start with advice.
Or faux pas. Either one.
You do advice.
I
I'll
would
do
say
faux pas.
I would say I see a lot of I see a lot of brides not being present, and I don't want them to sweat the small stuff. I end up getting them there because if I see it, I quickly assist them on the day, and I can put their mind at ease because I know there's something stewing under their I could just tell. But I would say don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. I love that saying, and it's just really try and be present because it does go in a flash, and there's nothing worse if you're thinking about something else and trying to communicate or get your photos taken, It's just let it all go and don't sweat the small stuff. It is absolutely all small stuff. The wedding day will always, we've got run sheets, we've got plans, we've been planning it for 18 months. But the wedding day is always just what it is. It's out of my control. It's out of your control. It ends up being perfect in its own right. So you cannot control it. Let it go. Relax and do not sweat that small stuff because it is absolutely all small stuff.
Totally.
That would be my advice.
I reckon that's fab advice. And I know I said I wanted to say faux pas, which I will, but that really squares with the best wedding advice I had was from my auntie. And she said something kind of similar, which was expect like 50% of things. Mind you, I didn't have someone fab like Nina, like making sure it did run smoothly, but she was like, expect like 50% of things to not be exactly as you imagine, whether like you thought you were having pink roses and they were yellow or, a supply.
I mean, I'd be upset with that though.
Yeah. So, I know. It's all small stuff.
No.
But like, like basically that like there's so many moving parts, like there's always something unpredictable. Yeah. Like, and obviously that can be small things, it can be big things. But she sort of said the same thing, like ultimately no one else knows and no one else cares. Exactly. Like don't let that compromise your experience of the day. Like, and that was her way of saying be present, don't sweat the small stuff. And it was so great because something did go wrong on my wedding day, but I look back in hindsight and actually that DJ not getting on the boat made when the DJ was at the venue 10 times better.
Totally.
But at the time, my husband or like fiance, no husband, fresh husband, were traumatized because we're like looking around this boat and it was a cocktail wedding. They're like, where is the DJ? Like, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's not even a sit down wedding. And there was a bit of like a communication breakdown between the boat company and the DJ, but basically it was all for the better. And but I didn't have a full blown panic attack because I was remembering that advice of like things will go wrong and no one was none the wiser. And they were chatting and having a great time. And I think it's proved
enjoy the couple and the guests and the bar. Oh my gosh.
People just want to have a good time.
Having fun. No one's looking at all those things. I mean, it adds to it and that's what makes those weddings very special for sure, those details. But in the end, the microscope, planning and all of that stuff, like if things go wrong, it doesn't ruin it. It's just,
As long as you've got your
spouse
the
same
there.
advice. I like that.
Yes. No, and do you know what's so funny? I've never heard that advice from you and I have like relayed that advice like scattergun ever since because it was such great advice.
You would know this, Andy, with your business, like the pressure is on. I mean, these girls, like I was married, a 10-year wedding anniversary this year and it was not like that the social media, it's amazing, but the pressure is on for these guys. It's subconsciously looking at other weddings, comparing all that stuff. Like I feel for the girls. And I think that whole being present and not sweating the small stuff is extremely hard. I mean, I remember I thought about myself walking down the aisle to my husband literally every night for a year. I went over that before that day. Like I know what that feels like. And then add social media on that and add, I don't know, the magazine features and all these things and the friends wedding next weekend and what are they doing in a month's time? Like it is a lot. So it is really hard for the girls these days and the grooms to be present. And I think that just hearing that and just remembering that it really doesn't matter and it still means that you can value it and it still means it's really important. I value all those things that are going in. I think they're really important. They shape a wedding and a party and an event. But in the end, just go with the flow it's like it's not the worst thing if something slightly goes wrong. But also you should have a killer team behind you that are like quickly making sure that no one notices.
And it adds charm. Like
it's fun.
I remember like being a heavily pregnant maid of honor for my sister's wedding, and my son was like 2 at the time and was the page boy, and he like insisted, and my sister, love her to death, Venetia, if you're listening, but like she was like, wanted the perfect day like every bride, and he found on the property like this massive like heavy duty like light thing, and as a 2-year-old boy does, like was not going to separate from this light. So I was like this whale walking down, and he wouldn't let go of the light. But now I look back at my sister, like that was one of my favorite parts of the day, that he had this like, I don't know what the brand would be. It was like pretty ridiculous at the time, but it was like, I think sometimes
children at weddings and involved in the ceremony are actually one of my favorite things because it breaks the ice. We had a wedding recently, and the kids are not doing what they're told. I mean, even watching the parents just try and wrangle them is hilarious, and it just breaks the ice. And then maybe they're crawling up to the bride during it's honestly they things like that, I think, just put everyone at ease and be like, this isn't all rigid and not fake, but it's not super perfect and can I breathe and can I laugh and all that stuff. It just all those things actually add to a relaxed sort of natural feeling wedding.
And I think you need to remember you're surrounded by your loved ones who love you. It's not an exam. You're not being graded on the day. And I think, as Nina said, like even I can tell, and I don't, aside from WEDIT, but work in the industry in the same capacity that Nina does, like even I can tell that there is like that. I think there's more pressure than even when I got married like 7 or 8 years
unbelievable.
ago. But as Nina said, it's all in your head. Like that.
But it's also it's an amazing the industry where it stands today for creatives and brides who are creatives. It's insanely amazing. I'm so proud to be in that industry, but there's a catch as well, because if you've got that side of perfectionist and you're interested in all those things, like it is a double-edged sword. It's like there's so many pros to social media and the creators all around the world doing these incredible things with florals and stationery and all that. But then you've got this high pressure. The stakes are high. There's so much going on, and you can get caught up in it, I guess.
And I think this kind of like another flow on from the OG advice you said is like, and we were talking about this like just this morning when we were getting ready, is like you can always, like the energy of the couple translates. And so if they're not present, if they're like really highly strung and really concerned with the yellow roses or whatever, like I think that means that other elements suffer, like the dance floor, or like I really think the guest vibe off the couple's energy.
Probably my second piece of advice that I do pump out on social media a lot is whatever vibe you guys want for your wedding, you have to be that. If you guys are getting your hair changed 3 times upstairs and not down near the dance floor, no one's really going to be dancing. If you guys are chatting, chatting is great, but how do you want your guests to feel? If you guys are, a bit reserved and really nervous and focusing on the wrong things, well, people are not going to relax either because they're maybe worried for you, or they're just, so that would be my second.
It's infectious. Your energy is infectious.
If you want a good dance floor, get on that dance floor. You do not leave your partner's side, and you absolutely go for it, and everyone will gravitate towards you.
Great. Well, girls, we've actually run out of time.
Oh.
And I think you two could do your own podcast. Because I think the couples who are listening, or brides who are listening, are going to probably walk away with some great advice. Now, I just want to finish off with, where can we find you? Where can we find WEDIT?
WEDIT.com.au. We're also on Instagram.
At WEDIT__.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so
girls.
much, Annie.
I've loved hearing all about WEDIT, and very excited to bring it to the bridal journey.
Thank you. We were so excited to come here.
Thanks,
and meet you and / nervous. But we were absolutely pumped.
Great.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, girls.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.